everything in the world is made up of cells, and the cell is really the basic unit of life. The cell is covered by a cell membrane, which is a thin layer of proteins and fat that surrounds the cell. And the cell membrane also allows some substances to pass through, and it blocks other things from going in as well. And phospholipids are a big component of cell membranes, and they form a lipid bilayer, which is attracted to water, and like the head area goes in, and as soon as it goes in, the tail breaks off because the head is attracted to water, but the tail is repelled by water. So structural proteins also help to give the cell structure and support, and it helps it get the shape that it has. So the cell membrane, and they help the cell talk to the external environment through hormones, and then transport proteins are they transport molecules across the cell membrane with facilitated diffusion, which is like what makes things go in easier, and they're embedded in the cell membrane, and they help the cell to communicate, and they help with molecule transport across the membrane, and passive transport when something requires no energy, and active transport is when it does require energy. So this purple thing you see, that's the nucleus, and the nucleus is a round body, and it contains DNA and a lot of organelles, and the nucleus is surrounded by the nuclear envelope, which is also called the nuclear membrane, and the purplish whitish that you see in the middle, that's chromatin, and what chromatin does is that they are condensed chromosomes, and then they're right there. And so what they do is that they contain active DNA. And also this purple thing, kind of purple bluish in the middle of the nucleus, is the nucleus, and it's an organelle, like I said, inside the nucleus, and it's where RNA is produced, and some cells also have more than one nucleus, which is pretty interesting. Now, as we leave the nucleus and nucleus, we go into the rough endoplasmic reticulum, also known as rough ER, and what that is, it's a big system of like interconnected, like enfolded sacs that are located like right in the cell cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm is the blue thing that you see all over the cell, which is it's like a jelly-like substance, and that's what allows every part of the cell to float in it. And so it's on the cell cytoplasm, and it's covered with ribosomes that give it the rough appearance. And what it does is that it transports materials through the cell, and it produces protein. So as we leave the rough ER, we go into the mitochondria. And what the mitochondria is that it's rod-shaped organelles, and they can be considered basically like the power of the cell. And what they do is they convert oxygen and nutrients into ATP, which is also known as adenosine triphosphate. And ATP is basically like a chemical energy of the cell, and it powers the cell metabolic activities. And it's basically like the reason why we breathe oxygen. So as we leave the mitochondria, we go to the lysosome, and basically lysosomes are organelles that contain enzymes, and they break up endocytosized materials, and they're found just in animal cells, because in plant cells, basically it's the same rules, but it's called a lytic vacuole. So, and now we move on to the centrioles, and basically what the centrioles do is that they're these barrel-shaped cell structures, and basically their main purpose is to kind of organize where all the microtubules go during cell division. So the little black dots you see on the screen, those are microfilaments, and what the microfilament does is that it kind of like maintains like the structural kind of like integrity in a way of the cell and whatever cell movements the cell has. So now we move down to microtubules, and what it does is that it just it provides structure for the cell, and it also helps separate chromosomes in the eukaryotic cell division. And under the microtubules, under the red line, is the smooth ER, and the smooth ER is basically it's interconnected and folded tubes, and they're located in the cytoplasm as well. And basically what they do is they transport material through the cells. They contain enzymes, and they digest, and they also produce lipids and membrane proteins. And then what they do is they also move like fresh made proteins and lipids to the Golgi apparatus, lysosome, and membranes. And now we go to the Golgi apparatus, which could also be called the Golgi body. And basically it's a flat, like, layered sac-like organelle, and it looks like a stack of kind of like almost like flapjacks, really. And they're located near the nucleus, and what they do is they produce the membranes that are around the lysosome, and they package proteins and carbohydrates uh, for basically for like export into the cell. So now we move on to the cilia, and the cilia are kind of like, they look like hair basically, and they're organelles that come up from the surface of basically all animal cells. And those small dots you see, those are ribosomes, and ribosomes are non-membrane bound particles where the protein synthesis happens, and the number of ribosomes in a cell, it always kind of depends on the function. They're composed of RNA and proteins, and they're attached to the rough ER. Then we move on to see vesicles, and a vesicle is a bubble-like structure, and it stores and transport like cellular stuff, and it digests waste within the cell, and it's separated by at least one lipid bilayer. Thank you guys so much for watching my photo story on the red spot, and just one last thing to tell you guys, ooh, kill